Hey, welcome back to Bitcoin Math. My name is Shane. Today we're going to cover our free ebook called the Fiat Trap. And if you haven't read this yet, I encourage you to check it out. It's free, it's in PDF downloadable format. You can access it right here from our homepage, Fiat Trap, read or download, and this will just open up a nice new window in which you can read the book right here in the browser, or you can download and read some other time. But ultimately, if we go back the last 4.5, 5 years of research, of studying Bitcoin, researching money, reading books, talking to people, watching different podcasts, and really just devoting most of our time to understanding monetary history, the Federal Reserve, how money works, how money is created, M2 money supply, inflation, and so much more. We realized, man, there's so much going on here, and it's really hard to explain this to people in a simple TLDR fashion so they can just get kind of the quick and dirty of it without having to spend 5 years and thousands of hours of research understanding these things. But just to kind of summarize, I mean, at the end of the day, the biggest problem has really been the devaluing of our money, our fiat money. If you're not familiar with this chart, this is going back to basically the early 1900s and looking at the loss in purchasing power of the dollar in that time frame. What this shows is that the dollar has lost basically all of its value, and that's because they have created so many more of them, right? So when you have a scarce supply of something, then ideally its value will go up in time, as seen with Bitcoin or gold or other commodities, right? But when you look at a fiat currency that is not scarce and can be printed on demand at will by those in power, well, this is what happens. You get massive amounts of inflation, and that's why the prices of things have gone through the roof. It's not that the price of the thing has become more expensive per se. It's that it just takes a lot more of your now less valuable dollars to buy them, right? So if your house is now worth $1 million and it used to be worth $500,000, well, did it appreciate $500,000 in value, or does it now just take 2 times as much of those dollars that are worth half as much to buy the same house? And when you start thinking about money in this way, it gets a little bit easier to understand, and inflation becomes something that all of a sudden doesn't actually make any sense, right? Inflation shouldn't exist. If there's a significant amount of, say, population growth and increased competition against a slowly growing supply of something, sure, perhaps the increase in demand will chase the prices of those goods and services up, but that's more a result of a supply and demand based system, not because the value of the money just continues to go down and down and down, because the central authorities, central banks, and politicians continue to print more money. When they want to do bailouts, they want to fund wars and do other things, so they print money at will to do those things without having to increase taxes or get votes or things of that nature. So if we look at this and we activate the M2 money supply, we can see here these are inversely correlated. So as the amount of money, dollars in the system goes up, well, the value of the existing dollars goes down. That's just the nature of that relationship. And this is also why, at a high level, Bitcoin was created, right? Bitcoin was created because Satoshi, whoever he, she, or they are, understood this and finally became sick of it and said, we need a better system. We need something that's more fair. We need something decentralized that can't be corrupted, can't be manipulated, and that is scarce and will therefore serve as a refuge, if you will, against some of the monetary debasement and inflationary tactics that we see with our dollars because of the way that they can just print them at will. And so that's really what the book is going to hone in on is like, well, how did all of this happen? What's the history there? And it's really going to go back to the beginning of, what is money? How did gold become a form of money? Why did we settle on gold as a medium of exchange, as a store of value, and as an agreed upon form of money? And then how did that money make its way into this paper that we use today? And why all of a sudden did that paper get so much easier for governments and central banks and central authorities to just make out of thin air, right? And it's going to go all the way back to the history, the meeting on Jekyll Island with, your Rockefeller circles, your JP Morgan circles. You've got, politicians, senators. You've got people that are now part of the Citibank family, and so many others who were influential in these big families and across these big governments at the time, basically coming together to figure out how can we control the money and how can we get it endorsed by the government to make it legal, right? It talks about the Executive Order 6102, right? When after the Great Depression, Roosevelt basically signed an order that required by law that everybody hand over their gold. And then what happened once they got the gold? They revalued it, right? They changed the value on the fly, and that was really the first major manipulation, if you will, of the money and the money supply by just, decree. Somebody saying, well, we have all the gold and we bought it at $30 an ounce, but we're going to reprice it. Oh, sorry. We bought it at $20.67 an ounce from you, but tomorrow we're actually valuing it at $35 an ounce so that, well, now we've got more value to work with. And this goes all the way through to, the abandoning the gold standard in 1971. There's an amazing website called WTF Happened in 1971 that points out a lot of charts. And you can see these trend lines and things that are just pretty wacky in terms of just, how different things went awry in 1971, which was the year that Nixon basically said we're no longer allowing the conversion of gold into dollars or dollars into gold, and that's no longer going to be a thing. And after that point, well, they didn't have to back the dollars with gold anymore. They could just print dollars however they saw fit, and that's exactly what they did. That gave rise to the petrodollar system, coming up with more ways to basically get the world to be dependent on dollars so that the dollar could be the global reserve currency, basically striking an embargo with the OPEC countries so that they only priced and sold their oil in dollars, meaning that any other country who wanted to buy oil from the biggest oil producers and shippers in the world, well, they had to have dollars to do that, right? And takes the history goes really all the way through to the great financial crisis, some of the implications from that, all the way through to all the bailouts, all the different programs and everything that were created to help stimulate the economy, to the zero interest rate policies that we saw throughout the 2010s, all the way to COVID and the knee-jerk reaction and stimulus that we used to prop up the economy during that time, all the way through to the Silicon Valley banking collapse of 2023, where because of the reckless monetary policy, ultimately a lot of the banks that were holding these treasuries that were paying them 2% were all of a sudden very, very upside down because the market value of those treasuries hit the deck after the Federal Reserve jacked up rates to 5%, and all of a sudden the value of the bonds that were only paying 2%, well, they weren't worth as much. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that's happened over the past 100 years, and it might take, weeks, months, years to really fully understand all of those things with any level of confidence. So we've strung together more of a TLDR version of that. That's our ebook, the Fiat Trap. It also talks about how Bitcoin offers a solution to these problems, some of the fundamental properties of Bitcoin, the protocol, the security, the decentralized nature of it, and really, the fixed supply and so much else that makes Bitcoin a lot different from fiat currencies, and how it is a better form of sound money and hard money, similar to gold, but with none of the drawbacks and a whole lot more benefits. So, if you want a quick history of all of these things and you want to really understand this at a high level, but don't know where to start, download our free ebook. We'll include the link in the comments down below. Take a stroll through it. Let us know your thoughts. Give us feedback if you think there's ways we can make it better. We appreciate your support. And with that, we will see you on the next one.